and howl about America and democracy. There is no America. There is no democracy. We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies. The world is a college of corporations, inexorably determined by the immutable bylaws of business. The world is a business. And I have chosen you to preach this evangel.
For all my free market healthcare robbing, stock stealing, retirement fund fucking with niggas. Fuck you little credit card scamming, jewelry stealing, crack selling, liquor store robbing motherfuckers. Shout to the homies, Carnegie, OG, Willie Randolph Hearst, Baruch, Rockefeller, the real Rockefeller, my main bitch Leona, pour out a little Louis the 13th. Scott Rothstein, Jack Abramoff, hold your head. My Rothschild niggas, let's get this money. I spend my day peppering America overseas. Pension for the workers, nigga, please. Embezzlement, etiquette, private settlement. I'm better with Confederate rhetoric from my mansion in Connecticut. Foreclosure Vic holes at the tenement. I twist words like a speech impediment. I hope you got good credit, bitch. If not, better get a new job with benefits. While I play golf with niggas and get cheddar with. New money buys brand new carrots. My old money bunch of great grandparents. You got grills in your mouth, I ain't mad at ya. I own every gold mine in South Africa. Thanks, baby, you made me $1 billion. Plus, I own a building for each one of my children's children.
Good evening, everyone. This is Chris J. here at Voice of Rebellion Radio. And yes, this is me live here on May 20th, Election Day in Venezuela. And I'll be talking quite a bit about that. And also, next Sunday, it will be in Colombia, their Election Day. And we've got a lot to talk about tonight. Also, there's been some pretty unfortunate events that have unraveled over in Israel with the Israeli-Palestinian situation, where the Palestinians are still continuing to get massacred by the Israeli military, and the American government seems to do nothing about that. And there's many different reasons for that. The American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, the multiple Israeli lobbies that are in Washington, D.C. that prevent anything from happening, the JIDF, which, if you don't know who the JIDF are, they're a internet organization that prevents any criticism towards Israel. But we're going to go to the main thing, and this is the Venezuelan election tonight between Nicolas Maduro and Henry Falcon. And really at stake there is whether Venezuela will be a U.S. colony or not. And let's see, right now it's the last thing that we're looking at the last updates here, and we're trying to find the most recent update that I can find on this. Maduro was expected heavily to win going into this election, and let's see, U.S. has already announced that they're not going to recognize the results, and that is very expected of them, considering that they are going to use their imperialist tactics to try to encroach on Venezuela. And they do not want Maduro winning, obviously, and they believe if Maduro wins, it's a recognized election. But you notice how quiet they are when the opposition wins the election, like what happened in 2015 when the opposition won the elections in that December. Let's see, and yeah, there was also a major boycott. The opposition stupidly boycotted the election. Which pretty much, gave them no chance of actually taking the presidency. Henry Falcon is pretty much the main opposition candidate, but he's not of the main opposition of alliance in Venezuela. There's the, I think it's Movimiento, de Unidad Democracia. I'll have to look that one up, what MUD in Venezuela stands for. And let's see. And by the way, I am by myself here in the studio tonight. I do not have a co-host tonight, and I don't believe there will be a co-host. In the meantime, it looks like that we're going back to being solo. I know that it was a pretty good format. How we had it was the two-man format where with Beeper Schultz, but I don't think that that's going to continue. The little experiment with Beeper Schultz, and also. I'm going to say right now is that a lot of the stuff that Beeper Schultz said on the show is not what I represent, and to be honest, is that Beeper Schultz is stances on certain things I believe to be a little bit extreme. I don't really adhere to a lot of what he said, and what Beeper Schultz's beliefs on, what Beeper Schultz said on a few issues, or what Beeper Schultz said on a few shows. I don't think that's what I want to represent. I just want to clarify, this is a left nationalist show, I would say. Might be the best way to describe the show, as I'm not a Marxist-Leninist, I'm not a fascist, I'm not a Nazi, I'm none of those things, and really no label is going to really identify me. But if there is a label that's going to identify me, is that I would say the show is definitely a nationalist-oriented show, is that I believe in what's best for America, what's best for every country, and the sovereignty of every country against the New World Order, against the World Bank, against the IMF, and all that good stuff. But I don't believe in, an ethno-state, as many of these people on the internet, on 4chan and such believe in, and I don't believe race mixing is bad. To be honest, I don't believe it. I mean, you can show me all the charts that saying that their IQs are lower. Those are biased. The IQ test is a biased system, and for you to sit over there and try to say that whites are the superior race via IQ. Why does it seem like that most of Europe seems to be enslaved by the World Bank, while a lot of African and South American countries are actually freeing themselves? It really doesn't make too much sense to me. And, I think white supremacism is just going to divide everybody, and that goes to all supremacy, all races, Jewish supremacism, black supremacism. Any supremacy is going to divide up the movement, and that's not what we need. We need unity. And I also don't believe in the idea of a monolithic culture for America. Is that white America is not the monolithic culture. America is a country of multiple cultures, and whether you're black, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Asian, it's as long as you love this country, isn't that what's really important? And I'm not, by loving this country, not loving the government, not bowing down to the state, obviously, as I'm obviously no supporter of the state, but loving this country, meaning what's best for American people, and American. There definitely might be a American culture that exists out there. That you could define it by a couple things, but I don't think it's defined by any race. It's not defined by a certain by a certain group. For example, also a lot of people, they want to I think another tactic that I've seen it just by straight up trying to say that blacks and people of other races are just not truly the same as whites, and it's not right, to be honest. And I'm not saying that beef is going back to that believing in all these things or whatnot, but I'm going to say is that I'm just going to say right here on the show that this show does not condone racism. The show does not condone white nationalism, white supremacy, fascism, and Nazism. It just does not. And if you want to call me a shill, you want to call me whatever, go ahead. But how many people have actually can come on here all the time, talk against the Zionist state as much as I do, really stand up for nationalist values, stand up for eliminating the Federal Reserve? If me not supporting all that other stuff still makes me a shill, well, I guess some people can't be pleased with what I have to say on the show. But let's go back to the topic. And also, another thing is that nationalism, you should support nationalism no matter what country institutes it, for the most part. Is that if the right for their own sovereignty, Congo has the same right to their own sovereignty as Canada. The Venezuela has their own right to sovereignty, which people don't seem to want to respect. And I guess it's partially under the belief that people from South America are primitive and that we don't know what we're doing. And I like to reiterate once again is that the name's Chris Jackson Rojas, and I don't rarely say my full name here on the show, but obviously Chris Jackson Rojas is a Hispanic name. So even though that I might have a white complexion, have white features and stuff like that, I'm still partially Hispanic. And it's to the people that want to say that we're dumb, we're inherently dumber than the rest, than North America and especially Europe. Look what's happened in South America is that they were actually able, almost the entire continent got together and freed themselves from the slavery and the usury of the World Bank. I mean, this happened. And now they're trying to reverse all that, by throwing Lula in prison, by killing Hugo Chavez, by, trying to say that this election today with Nicolas Maduro is illegitimate. And watch, if Petro wins in Colombia, they'll do the same thing and try to say that Petro, or they'll fight him from the day one if Petro wins, which, by the way, it's a 2-round system, so it's very likely that Petro and Duque, with Duque as the right-wing candidate in Venezuela, or Colombia, is that Duque and Petro move on to the second round. Okay, Duque moves on to the second round. Petro moves on to the second round. And I think, though, Petro, with the fear of what Duque could create for Colombia, a lot of people are going to get on board with Petro. But if he wins, he's going to be fought by the right-wing establishment in the country from day one. And let me remind you also, I think that I can support stuff from the European right. I can support stuff from the South American left. And how is that possible? Well, here's the thing, is that think about what the South American left represents. It's a nationalist-type political system with economic nationalism and somewhat social conservative nature. Kind of similar, when you think about it, to, they support for workers' rights, I believe for unionization, a lot of the European right, and they also believe more of a social conservatism. They believe in the right for a nation to determine their own future is crucial towards a free country. And, this election today is very important. I think that, Maduro, I wasn't really on board with Maduro, be honest, running again. I was hoping that they put somebody else from the socialists in this election. But to be honest, if Henry Falcon wins or any other candidate wins, Colombia or Venezuela, would become a United States proxy, just like it was prior to 1998. And does everybody forget what happened in the years prior to Chavez? Everybody forgets. Nobody likes to talk about it. But in the years prior to that, it was a dictatorship. It was a right-wing dictatorship. It was Carlos Andrés Perez. Remember, we all forget about him being the dictator of Venezuela. And his cronies ran the country. And Carlos Andrés Perez killed 3,000 leftists in Carazaco. But everybody forgets about that event. It's conveniently wiped out of the history when we talk about South America. Is that we forget, and that's the thing, they want to discredit this great thing that Hugo Chavez, Lula da Silva, Cristina Kirchner, Rafael Correa, Evo Morales, all these great men. Can't forget, of course, Fernando Lugo, and I'll even throw it out there, Michelle Bachelet, all these great left leaders that teamed up together that made a country that, or a continent that was free from the World Bank, and they were working towards that. And it was the projects of Banco de Sur was the big one. You bank for the continent to have free banking. It's like what we're seeing with BRICS on a continental scale. But actually have one continent free. This is the thing that killed Muammar Gaddafi over. He tried, but Africa. I mean, imagine a united Africa against the New World Order. How powerful that would be. And of course, it's like, and there's gonna be some people though they're gonna be thinking. I really hope that this little stint with Beepa Schultz did not attract the wrong crowd to the show. And I'm not gonna really shit on him too much, but I've just really concerned about what kind of image the show's put out there. Is that I want to remind people is that what the show originated from, and it's good that it changed from that. That this is no longer a Trotskyist show how it started, but the show still has left wing origins, and that's stuff that can't be repudiated. In my opinion, I believe now more of nationalism and but for me, the concept of nationalism is not Sieg-Heiling and terrorizing other races. And, this is what we're seeing in Venezuela. This is nationalism. What we see in Russia with Vladimir Putin, that's nationalism. What we see with Anja Ahmadinejad and what he did for Iran, that's nationalism. These are working examples of nationalism. Not some, crappy party here in America that can't even, get one fucking congressional seat, These are failures. The type of, the nationalist leaders here in the United States are so-called nationalist leaders. And, People should also acknowledge that some of these people like Richard Spencer and stuff are, shills. But I'm not even talking about Richard Spencer. I'm just talking about also a lot of the, 4chaners and stuff like that, talk about how nationalism is, how they want to push for nationalism, but they don't do anything. It's that, but here in Venezuela, they took life by the balls and they did something. But let me try to get you an update on tonight's election in Venezuela. And yeah, that's a good start to the show. After I still got it after how long? It's been probably about 5 weeks since I did a show. I do apologize about that. Trying, it's a little bit it's a little bit harder nowadays. I gotta admit than it used to be. You do this long enough, and just different things get in the way. I mean, I'm not 15 anymore. Didn't have back then you have all the time on your hands. You don't have also any money, so it's kind of like I did it with a very low production. Nowadays, at least I can do it with good production. But the problem is that you have a job, you have to go to college, you got things to do, and you also have and the good thing is I think I have but I do have a lot of knowledge, probably a lot more knowledge than maybe I had when I was 15. I know I was pretty good for my age at the time. When I first started, I first started in NWO Truth Radio a long time ago, and now we're here at UCY. It's 2018. It's crazy to think that I've been here this long. And I've been doing it. And I made a major shift in my politics in the last 3 years, and it was for the better. And let me get to the main thing, the results for the election. And still saying Maduro was heavily favored to win. And let's see, 2 hours ago, you know what? Why am I even doing this? Let's go to Telesur. Fucking Telesur is where I need to go. Let's see. Okay, live updates of the election. So polls were due to close at 6 p.m., but will stay open as long as there's people in line to cast their vote. That seems like to be a pretty good sign of a pretty fair election. Let's see. 9 o'clock, voting closed in the Venezuelan embassy in Chile. Let's see. 8:45, the daughter of former President Hugo Chavez exercised her vote today. And let's see. Or exercised her right to vote today. 8 o'clock, President of Venezuela's Constituent Assembly, Delcy Rodriguez, is given a press speech and announced that some polls are still staying open so that people can finish voting. The Venezuelan people have decided to defend peace. She said, "We are obligated to maintain peace in our country." Today is the year anniversary of the unfortunate event of a Venezuelan citizen who was burned by Venezuelan opponents by thinking differently or having a different skin color. She said, referring to the violent protests last year, "Extremists and those who seek violence were defeated today. We have a unique participative democracy in Venezuela. We will not stop exhausting all possible channels and instances for dialogue." And this is what Henry Falcon said. Let's see. Henry Falcon said, "You who still haven't voted, exercise your right and commitment to your country. Now is the time. Go out to vote. Together we can save Venezuela." Let's see. And of course, Falcon's plan is to dollarize Venezuela. That should be a major fucking red flag. That he's trying to dollarize a country. And yeah, he tweeted that earlier. I mean, Falcon, I'm not as alarmed, I guess, of him than Enrique Capriles, or wasn't. But I think now, well, I shouldn't even say that. I've always been alarmed by him, but I guess it just didn't. Or I wasn't alarmed of him. I've been alarmed for a little bit of time, but I should say that just recently happened. So totally scratch what I said. I just started, getting alarmed by him when I saw about the dollarization of the economy, his plans to, seems like pretty much bring the United States in and turn it into a proxy. There's a good chance that, I feel like if Falcon wins, Venezuela is going to go back to the old days, and the old days being the 90s. And also, by the way, Rafael Correa is an election monitor in this election. He's no longer the president of Ecuador. Now his former vice president, Lenin Moreno, is the vice president. Let's see. And this is the person I think should be, I think Chavez should have put in, instead of Maduro, Diosdado Cabello, called on everyone to participate in the final stages of voting and praised the electoral process as a victory for the Venezuelan people. Today, the people of Venezuela win. Who are the losers? Those who have readily bet on the disaster of this country that have been overshadowed with the participation of this day, he said. And so the results doesn't look like it came in yet. Venezuela is looks like it just closed out the voting, so it could be maybe a couple hours or so before we get the results. I'm going to be keeping an eye on those results and to see when they come in. And let's see. And also a couple facts about the election. As there's 531 locations that are open throughout the country to register in the electoral register or change one's poll. There will be more than 15 audits of the Venezuelan voting system. And this is a little timeline of how it went down. February 10th through 20th, voter registration. February 24th through 26th, candidate registration. February 26th through 27th, candidate confirmation. March 5th, voter list published. Ballot order decided. March 2nd through April 19th, campaign period. Second half of May vote, which is the vote is happening right now. Which, by the way, March 5th was announced on the anniversary of Chavez's death. And, whoever wins this will be in power for 6 more years. This election got moved up. This election was supposed to happen at a later time, but Maduro decided to do it a little bit earlier. And, the Venezuelan elections have been labeled as some of the fairest in the world. And this is not by, other socialist countries. I mean, even the Jimmy Carter Institute labeled these elections fair. So I really think that the whole idea that Venezuela's elections are rigged somehow is bullshit coming from the opposition in Venezuela, which are, they're globalists, they're corporatists, they are the same people that have staged protests, in Eastern Europe during the color revolutions. That's the same thing that's happening down there. Is that they're trying to do like a similar color revolution in Venezuela. And that's why I'm so against it. It's ultimately the Rothschilds, the globalists. They're the ones that are behind the disorder in Venezuela, and the Venezuelan situation, I think, is it's really a good model of things were turned around for many years, and then they brought more disorder in the last couple of years to try to bring down Venezuela by the hand. Different private corporations and right-wing think tanks have tried to overthrow Venezuela for the last 10 years, for the last 3 or 4 years, and that's why they've had the crisis that they've had. And the crisis that they have is also, I don't think it's really the same level that the media here in the United States try to play it out, that people are literally eating, cats and shit in order to survive. I mean, if you look around at a lot of the videos of Venezuela, they're showing fat people. Something about that doesn't really match up. They're supposed to be starving, but they're all fat. A lot of the people there are fat. It seems to be a little inconsistent with what they're trying to claim out to be. And there was like one woman that said, we look like we're starving?" She was kind of a larger gal, and that kind of made me chuckle a little bit. It's like, I think that, I think that the situation in Venezuela it has been exaggerated to try to make the whole process down there, the whole Bolivarian process, failed. It seemed like it was never meant to be. And ultimately, that way other South American countries don't follow suit. Mexico has an election later this year. Mexico's leftist leader is supposed to expected to win, and the guy is Obrador is expected to win, which would totally shake up the establishment in that country. He's in the Morena party, by the way, Obrador, which is like a left-wing nationalist party, kind of similar to what Chavez was for Venezuela. He would be for Mexico. And he's probably going to do a pretty good in that election. The last time Morena, the party, shows us in 2015, they were in the Chamber of Deputies election. They only had like 8.8% of the district vote. Not really too impressive numbers, but also that he's in a smaller party than he was before, and the polls are showing him winning, I'm pretty sure, by quite a bit. Yeah, the polls are still showing him winning at this point. And, unless they, rig it, which, not impossible to happen, it looks like Obrador is going to win the election. I mean, just very consistent, him winning the election. And with him winning the election, I can just imagine that what would happen is that kind of animosity that Trump would probably try to stir up against Mexico. And by the way, that's July 1st will be the election. And there they have like 6-year terms, but I think there it's a little bit different. You can only be there one time. Because Enrique Peña Nieto, he won in 2012, and he is not running this election. I think the establishment candidate is Ricardo Anaya. And some of the other candidates are Jose Antonio Meade and Jaime Rodriguez, or Jamie Rodriguez Calderon. These are some of the candidates are running against Obrador for the presidency of Mexico. And let's see, Peña Nieto, I mean, it's been marred with scandals. There was the entire, there was the kidnapping scandal that happened in 2015 when people were, 42 protesters were kidnapped and later killed, most likely by the military. It looked like they said the drug cartel, but drug cartel and the military, they work hand in hand there. The Mexican government is notoriously corrupt, and there's been there's some controversy with this current election. I mean, there was the Cambridge Analytica, looks like might have been involved there. It says that there's ties between PRI, which is the establishment party, and Cambridge Analytica. And then, here they're saying something about Russian meddling, apparently, in the election. Who the Russians want to win this election, apparently. Let's see. And it says, in December 2017, U.S. National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster claimed that Russia has launched a campaign to influence 2018 presidential election and stir up division without defining the methods of the supposed meddling, of course, just like the meddling that supposedly happened here, or indicating which would be the candidate favored by the Kremlin. The Russian government has denied these claims. PRI President Enrique Ochoa Reza confirmed the Russian and Venezuelan interests are supporting López Obrador's campaign. López Obrador has responded that Ochoa's declarations are part of a smear campaign against them, and later posted a video on social media where he joked about the claims and called himself Andres Manuelovich, and that's funny. And Watermelon right-wing commentator Gloria Alvarez has embarked on a tour through Mexico, calling López Obrador a dangerous populist and urging Mexican citizens not to vote for him. She was invited to a Pan Legislators Assembly on January 31st, where she criticized the alliances to PRD, which she called a party just like Morena. U.S. Senators Bob Menendez and Marco Rubio asked U.S. Secretary of State, I should say former now, Rex Tillerson to fight Russia meddling in the Mexican elections. On February 2nd, during a summit in Mexico, Tillerson said that Mexico should beware of the Russian influence. Dr. Tony Pagan, director of the Mexico Center at Rice University, noted that there's been no evidence of actual Russian tampering in the Mexican electoral process and considered the accusation absurd, given that the Trump administrations will not admit Russia interfered in the U.S. election, which I don't believe they did either. Why would they want Trump to win? But yeah, that's a little breakdown of the Mexican election. I mean, there's a lot, and then there's the Colombian election also happening next Sunday, but it's most likely going to a second round between Petro and Duque. Right now, I mean, Petro at different points was expected to win this election. Now he's kind of trailed behind. And let's see if there's any more updates on Venezuela election, which there's a good chance that we might not have a result during the show, or tonight even. We might have, or not tonight. We might not have a result till tomorrow. Early in the morning or something like that. Because they're more careful with their election. It's not something that they are, sloppy with, is that they're very watchful for election fraud in the Venezuelan election, especially with CIA tampering and everything. But the candidates are, there's Nicolas Maduro, Henry Falcon, Reinaldo Cojeda, Javier Bartusi, Nicolas Maduro, and here's a little background on the candidates. Nicolas Maduro, of course, former vice president, and one of Chavez's closest allies, was chosen to run in his place in 2013. When he was ailing with cancer. Henry Falcon, former Chavista that left in 2009 due to the constitutional referendum, now is a party called Progressive Advance, which is a kind of like a center-left party there, but they're still anti-Chavista. Also, Henry Falcon was, I think, a former governor, and now is from the state of Lara, and was it supports dollarization of the country and more foreign influence. I don't know if he was the governor of Lara, though. And then the last candidate, then I could break down the other two, actually, was Javier Bartusi, who was a Venezuelan businessman. He was linked to the leakage of the Panama Papers. He runs a church in Venezuela, has 16,000 followers, that expands social work and evangelist through the civil association El Evangelio Cambia. So it's kind of like an evangelist type person. I don't know if he's like the same. Hopefully he's not like Joel Osteen or whatever. That's respectable if just a religious leader, is actually springing out, bringing the Christian word. But of course, I get weary of I see when I see these people that get the huge following, then they start having the mega churches and stuff like that, and then they won't even help out the poor sometimes, let's see, this is something. He has positioned himself against same-sex marriage and is in favor of abortion only medical cases that compromise the life of the mother. Also, among his proposals as a candidate is the lifting of exchange control. He has also declared that he would not govern with Chavismo or with the opposition. Of winning, he would implant Sunday radio and television channels using the Bible and will convert Venezuelans into devotional Christians, to implement Christian values. Later, he left the occupation as pastor to be able to run because the Constitution establishes a requirement for the person to be secular. And it says, from what I can tell, it's hard to say what he actually is, but I don't know if it might be kind of like that. It seems a little bit, I don't like religion being too tied in with politics, and this guy's running against Maduro, so I'm feeling that this is it's just another opposition candidate. And then we look at Reinaldo Cojeda, who, is a Venezuelan engineer and politician. Actually wasn't born in Venezuela, he was born in Switzerland. His father was his father, Manuel Cojeda, was a representative of Venezuela at the UN. In February 1992, when Hugo Chavez's coup was carried out against Carlos Andrés Perez, he openly supported. The same year, he founded with other fellow activists the Patriotic Front, which supported socialist ideas within the nation. In 2008, he became a member of the PSUV, the same party that he was candidate for the governorship of Miranda State. In 2013, the PSUV underwent a series of changes to elect Cojeda, together with other members of the party, to abandon participating in the government of Nicolas Maduro. In 2015, he founded the UPP-89 party, and he announced his candidacy for the UPP-89, with the main platform of the campaign being the support of revolutionary process that Nicolas Maduro had abandoned. The campaign was registered through Venezuela's National Electoral Committee, the campaign was registered with Venezuela's National Electoral Committee on February 27th. And let's see, this election, some people have called it a sham. Of course, the United States has called it a sham, and in my opinion, I'm hoping Maduro wins the election, just because I think that if Maduro now is a stable leadership of the country for the next 6 years, I think that there will be some major changes that'll happen in Venezuela, and a lot of the instability that we see in the last couple of years will now change without the prospect of Maduro, falling out of power so quickly. And let's see, looking for any more updates on this election. Is that there's very little updates, believe it or not, when you type in about because I'm on Telso, but it still seems like even for being on Telso, this is a major event. I mean, this is the election in the country that founded, them. You think they would have constant updates, but let's see. And let's see. Just a lot of stuff talking about how people skipped the vote and, how they believed it was rigged. There's, of course, the Miami Herald's going to talk against it. That's Bautista Central. It's the start of it. The whole, I call it Guasano. The Guasanos there that they were originally the people that, despite anything, they would, talk badly about the Castro government. And it's kind of similar about the government in Venezuela. And yes, the Castro government is a nationalist government. I mean, they actually spoke against the Bilderberg Committee. Let's see. U.S. was not recognized as a zone. Same stuff that was mentioned before. There was some protest apparently that was drawn by the Venezuelan election. Venezuela holds presidential election with main opposition. Yeah, probably going to say that they didn't participate. Let's see. Some people in Canada joined the protest against the election. I mean, they're protesting the election, and then they're wondering why they're not in the government. I mean, they actually got, like a supermajority in the last parliamentary election, or it wasn't a supermajority, I think it was like 62% of the parliament. And it's funny how the opposition didn't say it was rigged then, and now they don't participate in this election, but then they're going to claim it's rigged, and that's why they don't win. I mean, this is pretty much what's going on now. It's idiotic, and this whole Venezuelan opposition, it's really trying. I mean, the people that support it are not thinking too deeply about what they represent for Venezuela. Is that they're not constructive; they're destructive, as we've seen in their protests. Is that they're not peacefully protesting; they are, creating a system of violence, attacking people who vote, not vote, but people that have for their political beliefs. And same thing with the anti-Chavistas outside, is that there's been instances where Chavistas have been attacked just simply because I wouldn't even say Chavistas. I say people that don't support the opposition. People that don't support the opposition have been attacked outside of or in other countries, and in Spain, in Miami. So I'm gonna see if I can find a more. And my apologies on the microphone right now. Is that just kind of wiggling out on me? But luckily I do have the microphone. I think the audio quality is gonna be probably a little bit better than some of the previous shows that I've done, where we had to switch between people on the show. Just a little reminder, there is no one else on the show, and if you do want to call in, you're more than welcome to. Number's going to be 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296 here at Voice of Rebellion Radio, only on UCY.tv, and that is the home of UCY Radio. By the way, if you haven't checked out some of the other shows on UCY.tv, go ahead and check those out. There's quite a bit of shows to check out throughout the week, as they seem to be always broadcasting. Red Pill Sunday School is on Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We got after this, we got Nathan Frazier's LiveFree.fm. That's on at 11 o'clock after my show ends. And Anti-Media Radio, of course. This is the home of Anti-Media Radio, the one and only, the famous Anti-Media Radio, 5 nights a week. And that's on at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. And some other, other big shows that we have here. Rock the Boat with Ron Stevens. Those are on Sunday nights, or I believe it's Sunday nights, yes. And so, by the way, if you haven't done so already, I would go ahead and like UCY.TV on Facebook, and or you can go ahead and subscribe to my personal Facebook page, Chris Jackson Rojas, on Facebook. There I have updates, occasionally a podcast or so, talk about the different events, and especially if there's something big like an election or something like that, or like a major strike, I will be talking about it. But that's one of the which is kind of crazy. I mean, remember how last month we were talking about how we were going to go to World War III, and I still feel that I'm still pretty unnerved by that. I still think we're going to go to World War III, and I just feel like it's been a little bit put off, but it's going to happen. I mean, as long as we're antagonizing Iran like this, and I'm tired. The talk, the blind support of a war against Iran is really evident of the Zionist control here in the United States. Is that because that's ultimately what's causing it? Is that the Zionist lobby wants us to go to war with Iran, and what gain does the American people have besides all that's going to happen for us is that we're going to lose millions of people potentially in a war there. And also, I got a little clip here talking about America's special relationship with Israel. This is I don't agree with maybe everything this guy says, but Patrick Little, this guy's running against Dianne Feinstein, who is the senator out in California known for her extreme anti-gun control, of course, big-time Zionist. He's running for the Republican Party against, and he might actually, it looks like he's like the favorite candidate against her. So I'm going to play this little clip. This is an incident that happened that he was involved in, and you can hear it for yourself.
Patrick Little here. I'm your leading Republican candidate in the latest poll. I've got more than twice the support according to survey units say that any of those candidates in there. They just had me expelled from the building because I won't serve Israel. I want to serve my country. I want to serve the United States. I want to serve Californians. I will not bow to a foreign flag. I will not serve a foreign government. The Republican Party, GOP of California, is nothing but Zionist stooges. They do the bidding of a foreign power that has committed terrorist attacks against this country. The USS Liberty in 1967, over 200 casualties. They machine gunned the life rafts. They used napalm on the casualties that were being triaged on deck. They planted bombs in U.S. military targets, morale, wellness, and readiness facilities in Egypt in the 1950s. They were trying to blow up United States servicemen and their families in Egypt. Blame it on the Arabs. Israeli citizens committed these terrorist acts. It is by a stroke of luck that we detected the bombs before they went off and hurt any U.S. citizens or U.S. military.
I apologize for that the accidentally closed out the clip. I'll play the rest of it. But as you can see, this man's a very vocal and big-time supporter against the Zionist state and our special relationship, where we sent $15 million daily to Israel, while we don't even have heating in some of our schools here in America. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. But here we go. We'll play it again. Let's see if I can find exactly where was the part. Let's see.
Is nothing but Zionist stooges. They do the bidding of a foreign power. The casualties that were being triaged on deck. They planted bombs in U.S. military targets, morale, wellness, and readiness facilities in Egypt in the 1950s. They were trying to blow up United States servicemen and their families in Egypt. Blame it on the Arabs. Israeli citizens committed these terrorist acts. It is by a stroke of luck that we detected the bombs before they went off and hurt any U.S. citizens or U.S. military personnel in Egypt in the Lavon affair. All of the people involved in the Lavon affair were Israeli citizens pretending to be Egyptian Arabs. We turned them over to the embassy in Cairo on orders of our United States State Department. Terrorists trying to kill Americans in a false flag attack. Never punished. Turned over to the Israeli government. They were never punished. These people are heroes in Israel. June 1967, USS Liberty, 51 years ago almost now. Over 200 casualties in a false flag attack. We know there are Israeli fingerprints all over the 9/11 attacks. This is the flag of a terrorist country. They called the police on me when I started stepping on it and dragging it under my foot as I walked out the door. I was being escorted out by security. I'm leading with more than twice the support of the nearest person in third place. And they kicked me out because I won't serve a foreign power. I want you to remember this. If you're a liberal, if you're a right-winger, if you are against the genocide going on in Palestine, if you're against United States servicemen dying in wars to expand Israel, if you're against veterans being dishonored at a convention where they're the leading candidate because they won't serve this terrorist flag, you have to vote for me on June 5th in California. We need to send a loud and clear message to AIPAC. That Israeli dual citizen Dianne Feinstein, she serves this flag. I'll never serve this flag. Vote for me on June 5th in California, and I will remove the Jewish supremacist Zionists from our government. And I'll make America great again by removing the terrorist element, the Zionist lobby.
Man, that's some pretty powerful words there. I mean,
Good morning.
This guy seems to be seems to be pretty vocal against the Zionist state. I mean, of course, they're going with the smear articles against him, saying that he is a Nazi or whatever, and a white supremacist. I mean, if you look up, we'll actually read his little bio here in a second, but I mean, especially with the genocide that they're committing right now, and the fact that they just did another massacre. You think that the massacre that's happening right now, that they're continuing with their genocide. You think that there would be no way that criticism like that would be construed as anti-Semitic, but of course this is how it works. There's nothing that you can say against Israel that won't be construed as you being hateful towards Jews. That's just the way that they operate, and with Hasbro, they love to keep the information under control. But let's look at Patrick Little, and let's see. I mean, this is the news article. It says supporters of neo-Nazi running for Senate promotes anti-Semitic robocalls. California Senate candidate endorses call to rid America of traitorous Jews. Our readers tell us why we're wrong about Gaza and Patrick Little. Let's see. And this is the Newsweek one. Is that California Senate candidate endorses call to rid America of traitorous Jews. Let's see. We'll talk about Feinstein, I guess, here. And an advertisement in support of neo-Nazi U.S. Senate candidate in California reportedly encouraged voters to pick him in order to rid America of traitorous Jews like his incumbent opponent, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein. The automatic or robocall ad that dialed up Californians was paid for by a podcast that Road to Power, which labeled itself as a white nationalist anti-Jew, according to Right Wing Launch. The ad, first unearthed by radio station KFI AM 640 on Tuesday, endorsed known white nationalist Republican candidate Patrick Little and defamed Feinstein as pretending to be American. To rid America of traitorous Jews like Dianne Feinstein, vote for Patrick Little for U.S. Senator for California. He's a patriot, a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, and he has vowed to end Jewish control over America. Starting with Dianne Feinstein, an Israeli citizen pretending to be an American while she takes her money for her real country, Israel, and kills her children for it too, the ad said. The voice of the ad went on, he's going to rid of all nation-wrecking Jews from our country, starting with Israeli citizen Dianne Feinstein, liberate the USA from the Zionist occupation, free Palestine, America first, no more wars for Israel. This is my response, he said. Little appeared to back up the ad's content, a statement to the radio station there. And let's see. Little seemed to distance himself from the ad, stating that he didn't even know what was being done. According to messages on the social media site, Gab screenshot by Right Wing Watch, and when asked by San Francisco Chronicle whether he approved messages, said, "Show me a lie and I'll consider renouncing it." Little was removed from the California Senate GOP convention in San Diego earlier this month, and the party stayed armed. Now supposed Little, and it was actually, let's see. However, prior to the convention, Little was polling in second place, 18% of the vote. In response to inquiry from Newsweek, Matt Fleming, the communication director of the California Republican Party, disavowed Little. Mr. Little has never been an active member of the party. I do not know Mr. Little. I'm not familiar with his positions. In the strongest terms possible, we condemn anti-Semitism in any form of religious bigotry, just as we do racism, sexism, or anything else that can be construed as hateful from point of view, would say. So, I mean, but the thing is that I don't know Patrick Little from what he was prior. On Ballotpedia, he's got, or let's see what says there. It just says Little was denied entry to the California Republican Party convention. Party officials cited, let's see, I guess it's supposedly hateful views by Little in their decision to prevent him from participating in convention events. Anti-Semitic views is what they said, not hateful views. They said anti-Semitic views. And with the top two primary, I mean, got Dianne Feinstein. I got some of the Republican candidates: Arun Boquimitra, James Bradley, John Crew, Aaron Cruz, Roque de la Fuente, Jerry Laws, Patrick Little, Kevin Montes, Mario Bibla, Tom Palzer, Paul Taylor, and Patrick Little's views. I mean, it's really, to be honest, is that what he said in that little in his little speech there, his little rant there, nothing was anti-Semitic about it. To be honest, I mean, I don't know what he's said in the past, though. That's what I'm trying to find and see if there's anything in the past where he actually said. And and they're taking stuff out of context. It says, after it emerged, he espoused a range of white nationalist views, including calling for a country free from Jews. Patrick Little, a 33-year-old extremist who last week topped other Republican Senate candidates in a poll of the field, told Newsweek on Monday that he admires Adolf Hitler and would prefer to see Jewish Americans deported to Israel. He falsely denied the genocide of the Jews took place during World War II, and incorrectly suggested that Germany was not an aggressor in that conflict. Mr. Little has never been an active member. It goes on a statement about him being disavowed or whatever. And it's just, a tweet that he made. I've been so busy for the better part of a decade in uniform for the Zionist occupation government, then working all the time, then dedicating all my time to studying and fighting the Jews. I haven't had any time for my passions. It's so terrible to live in a time of war, and it's the worst war people have ever faced. I envy our ancestors, and if we defeat the Jewish tyrants, our progeny. Let's see. Little attended a deadly rally in Charlottesville, so I guess it was the Charlottesville rally. He said when he said he brought his weapons before ultimately following advice not to carry them during the march. It says Little also goes on later. Let's see. State has to use force. He said if things are the law, they have to be enforced, and ultimately government, that is the threat of force. I guess what he's saying, the Jews being deported to Israel. When asked if his views sounded similar to the Nazis did to Jewish people in World War II, he incorrectly denied that their genocide had happened, and added that if he were a man of greater faith, he would view Adolf Hitler as the second coming of Christ. What? I don't know if I have to look at these things are actually true that he said. I can't support him if this is what he's saying, but this is also from Newsweek, so I'm not going to really take anything there from what they say too seriously. Apparently, though, that's the thing is that he said, I'll figure out how to have an income and how to eat after this campaign. Will said, I guess apparently Little doesn't really think that he's going to win. Even though that looks like he's the top challenger in this election, and it's kind of hard to say because even with inside the so-called nationalist movement in America, a lot of nationalists are pro-Israel. So it's hard to say how his criticism towards Israel is going to get taken by that form of the so-called nationalist. And I don't know how you can be really a nationalist and still be pro-Israel. And that's a pretty big oxymoron right there. It's that they are the enemy towards any sovereignty around the world. Because Israel's right there tied in with the Rothschilds, Israel, and the United States and Saudi Arabia. They are what they are. And it's hard. He's not also the only candidate that says that espouse supposedly anti-Semitic views that's running for office on a Republican ticket. He joins Nealon and 70-year-old Arthur Jones, who will be on the ballot this year representing the GOP in a race for Illinois 3rd Congressional District. Goda called the influx of anti-Semitic candidates in American politics alarming within the context of history, even if their views are regarded to be fringe. I doubt that really anything big is going to result out of this, but yeah, also people forget that ultimately Israel's an ethno state. They are, when it comes to the closest thing to, they're talking about a, pure race and, eliminating people that are not of that pure race. Israel does that. I mean, have anyone seen how they treat people that are Africans? They treat the Arabs in their country. It's absolutely despicable how they treat them. And you see that they've killed so many people since Israel became a state. I mean, it's been absolutely ridiculous. The genocide that they're committing, and the world turns a blind eye. The media doesn't talk anything about the genocide that happens in Israel, against the Palestinian people. And they stole that land. They stole the fucking land. Those people lived peacefully, for all those years. And once Israel became a state, that's when the problems began. The Israeli state has been in trouble, not because everybody hates them for no reason. It's because it's because of their own. That the fact is that they have usurped a piece of land that does not fucking belong to them. That's plain and simple. Is that when you take land that's not yours, you're going to have problems, and you're not going to live in peace on that land. And also a lot of what they talk about, that the fact that they're under threat from the Arabs all around them, that's not true. Most of the Arab countries around Israel are in support of Israel. It's whether there's official diplomatic relations or not. And now Saudi Arabia announced official diplomatic relations that they have with the Israeli state, and they still try to claim that all the Muslim countries around them hate them. We have 2 billion Muslims around us, and that's why we have to do the things that we have to do. I call major bullshit on that. Seriously, though, it's absolutely crazy that they can claim that, and that they can claim that everybody around them hates them. At the same time, they have all the support of practically every country, and the countries that don't support them, they start a war against. Because that's how the Zionists exist. That the Zionists continue to put this media campaign out there that their existence is under threat, and that our government's not doing enough to protect them, even though that we're sending them all that money. We're sending them, again, $5 billion annually to the Zionist state. We're sending all these weapons. We're sending all these jets. It's the amount of support for Israel is ridiculous, and it needs to come to an end. It's and ultimately, as from any perspective, practically, the support of the Zionist state is illogical. Whether you're a supporter of democracy, they're not democracy. If you're a supporter of, or at least not they're at least not a democracy that includes everyone. If you talk about as a Christian, look how they treat Christians in that country. They treat Christians like shit in that country, and we can't support that. If you look at it, they vandalize churches. They kill Palestinian Christians. You forget what they do to the Palestinian Christians. That there's a lot of the Palestinians there are Christian, but everybody forgets that. Of course, as a Muslim, you can't support that. You can't support them as a socialist. Is that the fact is that that their oligarchy is not just affecting Israel, but all the people around them. By the way, it is almost 10 o'clock here, so if anybody wants to call in, we're about halfway through the show. It is 718-717-8296, 718-717-8296 here at Voice of Rebellion Radio. We are halfway through the show, and I'm glad to all the people that tuned in tonight. Thank you for tuning in. And I do apologize if I don't have a lot of, like material, and I don't, have maybe quite the same energy that I've had before. I just think it's just kind of weird. I feel kind of rusty, to be honest, to be doing the podcast. And even though that I just did a podcast not really that long ago, it's that, doing one solo, it's been a good amount of time since I did a podcast solo. Yeah, that's when was the last time I even did one solo, to be honest. It's a little bit different, and I used to do 2-3 hour podcasts, no problem solo. It's definitely different, and it's kind of cool to be back solo. I can really espouse, the political views that I have, not what somebody else has, and then they can people misconstrue the show to be something that's not, and that's really one of the things that I'm, trying to emphasize. Is that the show is a show that's, I would say it's left wing, but it's also not at the same time not Marxist Leninist. There's I have my major reasons why I don't support that. Which by the way, I would like to see that. How many people would like to see me? If you don't know who he is, but is a pretty prominent YouTuber. That talks. That's a Marxist-Leninist YouTuber. He gets a lot of support. He's a big supporter of Stalin. Jason Arunhe, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's pretty prominent. He even has memes about him and stuff like that. And I wonder how many people like to see me debate him. Even though I feel like, to be honest, though, when it comes to specific stuff, he has probably he probably would dominate there. And if you're talking about specifics about the Soviet Union. So when it comes to the concept, and I think by practicality, I could probably beat him in a debate because I know, I'm a pragmatist when it comes to politics. Is that, but he's actually also not, he's not like a Trotskyist or anything. He's like some of the stuff that he campaigns for. He's a he's definitely not your typical Marxist-Leninist on the internet, or else I call them the internet Stalinists that are there. That it's even when I was, in the past, I still, would talk about much about the internet Stalinist and how I don't, my own disagreements with them, or my own, to be honest, my whole separation from the movement. Then and then also the Nazis that are on the internet. To me it's the same shit. It's two ideologies that do not work, and there's major causes a lot of suffering. But let me go to a little video here, and I'm going to just put a little video here for you guys' enjoyment. So just hold on, and let's see. We're gonna give another update on selection. I'm gonna be doing them throughout the night until the show ends. Let's see if there's any more news. 26 minutes ago, Venezuela vote turnout was 32% by 6 p.m. election board source, which is still not that bad. I mean, that's they talk about how low this turnout is for this election, but that's not much lower than your average American election. And to be honest, is that I could see why maybe the turnout is lower, especially there's a lot of disenchantment in the country because of the Venezuelan crisis, but at the same time, I think a good portion of Venezuelan people know that with the right wing, who knows what's going to happen. It's just like the same thing with the right wing Colombia. If Duque comes in to the presidency in Colombia, we are looking at a dictatorship. I mean, we're talking about a military dictatorship where leftist protesters could get killed. And I think people know that they need to stay away from Duque. He is a complete ignoramus, and he is or even better word, he is a. Damn, I don't have the word for it. better than ignoramus. I had a better word for that. But Ivan Duque is an incompetent loser. Let's go with that. I mean, this guy doesn't have any real experience in politics. I don't think. He's just a friend of one of the most corrupt politicians in Colombian history, Alvaro Uribe, who's like the equivalent of their Hillary Clinton and and Ronald Reagan combined, or something like that. It's just a complete fucked conglomeration, is what Uribe's politics are. And his party, Centro Democratico, it's not center, it's not Democratic. It is very much a far-right party that will cause a lot of problems for Colombia if elected. And they're against the peace deal in Colombia. They're against the they're extremely for more and more American influence. They're not against that, or I think they're against cracking down on the paramilitaries. While they want to talk about cracking down the guerrilla groups that have been already handled, is that they want to continue putting out that fear that there's this chance of insurrection from the left when it's already over. There's the guerrilla groups have been crushed, and now they're about to and I think with Petro they probably would sign, the ELN would sign an agreement with Duque. They would continue the war. They would say we need to do these measures in order to bring a safer country. And to me, Alvaro Uribe's guy here, it would be disastrous. By the way, he's only 41 years old, Ivan Duque, who his political background, again, is very little. I mean, he became a candidate for Senate in 2014, and let's see, as a senator, he did a few things. He wrote a couple books, but he hasn't done a lot. And let's see. I mean, and he keeps talking that Gustavo Petro is going to turn Colombia into Venezuela, which is wrong. That is the thing is that actually Gustavo Petro is against Nicolas Maduro, pretty much. I mean, he did say that he supported Chavez. I mean, let's put this, actually, that's the clip. I found the clip that I'm going to do here. They'll play. It's only a few-minute clip, and let's see if I can find the English version of it, though. Let's see. Gustavo Petro is really popular with like the young crowd in Colombia, and let's see. Well, this is in Spanish. I guess I can translate it after or something like that. It's like 3 minutes, so anyway, it's in Spanish. We can listen to it. Yeah.
So fun, so interesting, and really so exciting. It's also an unbelievable Facebook Watch.
Soccer and Facebook Watch.
Always on your desktop. Save of the week.
Well, of course, I like because I want the Univision.
How do you even
I don't really like watching anything on Univision, but I mean, it's just a good example. Just like fake news goes further than CNN or Fox. Even though channels like Caracol, Univision, BBC, they all act the same.
Señor Petro, muchísimas gracias por estar hoy con nosotros.
¿Cómo
está, Jorge?
Let's see
Le agradezco mucho. Déjame comenzar con
English or something. I'm trying to find if I can get translated or something like that. I mean, I know what they're saying, but I want to have the audience know what they're saying. Let's see. Too bad I don't have video, because then I could have the captions, but let's see.
Cuando llego a la manifestación
que
era la idea, el blindaje nivel 4.
Como que Hugo Chávez, déjeme entrar directamente con el tema. ¿Usted cree que Hugo Chávez fue un dictador? ¿Usted lo admiraba?
Primero que todo, creo que muchos presidentes que has entrevistado te han dicho que será su único periodo y la mayoría te han cumplido.
Él no me cumplió, él mintió.
Él es el único, quizás, o pocos no te han cumplido, pero la mayoría sí. Y en segundo lugar, en Colombia eso se ha respetado. Solo un presidente varió la Constitución en su propio beneficio, por lo menos en la época contemporánea, el presidente Álvaro Uribe, que precisamente generó la figura de la reelección cuando no existía previamente. Y en tercer lugar, ¿qué pienso yo de lo que acontece en Venezuela? Su pregunta concreta. yo pienso que la política internacional está dividida tajantemente ya por el tema del cambio climático.
No, pero Hugo Chávez fue un dictador, no, señor Petro. El cambio climático, si quiere lo hablamos después, pero
Hugo Chávez lo eligieron popularmente varias veces.
No, ¿usted cree que fue un dictador?
Creo que no hubo dudas sobre sus elecciones, hasta donde yo tengo datos, no hubo dudas.
Pero no me ha contestado si Chávez es un dictador o no. Usted en marzo 5 del 2013 en un tuit dijo lo siguiente: viviste en los tiempos de Chávez y quizás pensaste que era un payaso, te engañaste. Viviste en los tiempos de un gran líder latinoamericano. Un gran líder latinoamericano. Él tuvo prisioneros políticos, responsable de muchas muertes, censuró y controló a todos los medios de comunicación. ¿Eso es un gran líder político?
A mí me parece que Chávez murió. Y en su muerte una parte de Venezuela lo admira y otra parte no lo admira.
No, pero usted, señor Petro, porque
yo pienso,
porque lo están ligando con él. Si usted,
sí, pero es que, a ver,
el temor es que usted va a hacer lo mismo que él. No, ese es el temor de muchos colombianos.
Yo no puedo hacer lo mismo por dos razones fundamentales. En primer lugar, porque lo que estoy proponiendo es Colombia separar la economía colombiana, el petróleo y el carbón. Si vas a comparar lo que se ha hecho en Venezuela con lo que proponen los candidatos, tú lo que ves es que es similar a lo que pasa en Venezuela hoy, lo que está proponiendo Vargas Lleras, Duque, lo que ha hecho Santos y Uribe.
Pero no me ha querido contestar. Es muy sencillo si para usted Chávez fue un dictador o no.
A mí me parece que lo eligieron popularmente.
O sea que para usted no fue un dictador.
Y me parece que a su muerte lo que está aconteciendo en Venezuela es el crecimiento de un autoritarismo que está acabando con todas las libertades públicas.
Muy bien, ¿usted cree que ya no hay democracia en Venezuela y que Nicolás Maduro actualmente es un dictador en Venezuela?
Eso es diferente, ¿no? Yo sí creo que en Venezuela se la está carcomiendo la corrupción y el autoritarismo.
Muy bien, y déjeme pasar a un tercer tema. ¿Para usted Raúl Castro es un dictador en Cuba?
Yo pienso que toda economía estatizante termina matando las libertades.
Sí, pero la pregunta es muy sencilla. Si para usted Raúl Castro es un dictador.
Un régimen sin libertades es una dictadura.
¿Usted quiere cambiar la Constitución? ¿Usted se puede comprometer ahora de que si es elegido presidente va a estar solo 4 años y nada más?
Exactamente, y lo que queremos cambiar son los temas sociales que impiden que los colombianos convivan.
Pero si hay una constituyente, ¿no abriría eso la posibilidad de reelegirse?
Pues ya vivimos una constituyente y nosotros fuimos la fuerza mayoritaria en 1991. El M-19 ganó las elecciones y el resultado es una constitución, por lo menos teórica, profundamente democrática, que usted puede leer.
Entonces, pero nada más es el compromiso. Usted se compromete a que, a pesar de cualquier cosa que ocurra en la constituyente, no va a buscar una reelección después de 4 años.
No, ese no es mi interés. A mí me interesa construir los pilares de una era de paz en Colombia.
Y termino con esto. Va adelante en las encuestas. ¿Qué puede fallar?
Lo que ha pasado en Colombia tradicionalmente, todo candidato que no es de la clase política tradicional y se acerca al poder ha sido asesinado. No hay excepción, todos han sido asesinados.
Pero esto no es una muerte anunciada, señor Petro.
Bueno, ya hubo un atentado.
¿Usted cree que su candidatura le ha ayudado a Iván Duque, al candidato de la derecha, al candidato de Uribe?
Mi interés es que ganemos. Quien quede segundos, hablaremos con él siempre porque tendremos la puerta abierta.
Just starts going on to ask him a couple more questions or whatnot, but definitely shows the pressure that they're trying to put in these media appearances with Gustavo Petro. I mean, the media in Colombia is no different than the media in the United States or the media here in, or the media, I should say, the media over in the UK or whatnot, and is that it's all the fake news. It's something that's prevalent in multiple different countries. It's not the only country that has this major problem, and I think that Colombia's future is heavily reliant on what happens Sunday. Is that with Ivan Duque's election, we're looking at a fascist future of fear, of poverty, and the establishment wins. But if if Petro wins, there's a hope. There's hope that Colombia will become a democracy where community organizers and people and protesters aren't killed. Where we don't have paramilitaries running around rampant, where you don't have organized crime being sanctioned by the government. And it's not like to say everything's going to be all perfect when Petro wins, but I feel like it could be hope of massive change rather than what we are living in today in Colombia. Is that Colombia there's a all the massive corruption where almost every party is in support of Juan Santos, and they're just like one party against him. And the one party that normally is against Juan Santos, they supported a more center candidate, Fajardo, but he's not expected to win. But I do worry that it's the division in the left between Fajardo and Petro. If that's enough to cause enough swaying in the vote where Duque will win the election. There's actually also a third candidate on the left, Humberto de Calle, who we have this massive rift in the left wing in the country. And then the right wing seems to be pretty united again, for the most part, with Duque. And Ivan Duque, again, it would be a disastrous election if Ivan Duque becomes the next president of Colombia. But if Gustavo Petro wins, there's hope. There's massive hope and a better future for Colombia. I really do believe that. It's that with that happening. I really hope Colombia, becomes has a good result there, and that even though I'm living over here in the United States now, as Dad, I definitely still feel pretty attached to the to the struggle down there. I wouldn't say my home country, but a country that's very close to me, and Venezuela is a very similar situation. Is that in my belief is that South America's determination of sovereignty is very important towards the world. It's an example towards the world of what they need to do. Is that these bankers, they've caused enough fuckery for the last 5 centuries. It's time for us to finally kick them out of Europe, kick them out of the United States. And it sucks that last year in France, that Marine Le Pen did not win her election. Marine Le Pen's like almost one of those people that could be a person who starts the fire in Europe, much like Hugo Chavez started the fire here, on this side of the world in Venezuela. And I'm going to actually, I'm going to do something. I'm going to head over to the chat, and I haven't done that too much recently. I'm going to nudge, all y'all for a minute and take a look at what's going on in the chat. If anybody's got any questions there, you can do that there. I know a lot of people are shy to call in. Actually, talk here, but let's see what's going on in the chat. And it is pretty quiet in the chat tonight. We have a, let's see, Behind the Woodshed was talking there, and we left a little thing there to talk about, multiple things, but it's not really a lot going on in the chat tonight. It's like, I've been in the chat a long time, so maybe they just know that I don't really go there. That's why the chat's so quiet. But if anybody is in the chat and wants to talk, I am here, so you can come in, check it out, and I'll answer any questions. I'm going to stay in the chat here for a minute before then I might go and play a little clip. By the way, talk about some other shows that are coming on. That there's Truth or Talk Radio Sunday 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Another show, Our Interesting Time, Saturday 7 p.m. Eastern Time. There's some shows to check out if you are new to UCY TV. You can take a listen and get familiar with our network. It's a very I think it's a very unique network, and we have it's a pretty decent sized network, to be honest too. There's a lot that goes on in this network, and we've had a lot of big guests here at UCY.tv that you don't really I don't know if you get quite that variety. Different type of people from you got people from more far right fascist to more kind of left communist, all that type of stuff on here. And then you got people like me that are just kind of off the chart on my own thing. Can't really, I don't know if you can be defined by like a title or something like that. I'm a different type of broadcaster, And it's like a lot of nationalists. They wouldn't recognize the nationalist process and the socialist process that's happened in Venezuela today. They would not. It's the unfortunate reality is that they would because it's South America. I guess it's not the same apparently. But I'm actually going to go towards I think Telesur is live. I'm going to broadcast what's going on Telesur for a minute. I'm going to take a little break here, so I'm going to leave you with that Telesur broadcast. And let's see. This is, by the way, Telesur English, so don't need to translate there. Let's see. We do have a live video, I believe, and yes, it's some coverage from the election. So I'm just going to leave that for you for a moment.
Can say at this time that we have a tendency, an irreversible tendency, that we want to thank all the personnel for the National Electoral Council that has worked tirelessly in these past few weeks, carrying out the organization and transparency and order and functioning of this electoral process. With them, thank you very much. We have worked very hard to bring you these elections. We have said here that in all that this has always been like this. The most important thing is to say thank you to the people of Venezuela who has come out to vote, who has come to vote in peace. We have had a very peaceful electoral process, nothing to regret. It's an electoral process that has been carried out as in accordance to the traditions of the Venezuelan people, with a lot of peacefulness, with a lot of civilian participation. We ask all of you, and we say this: Venezuelan people has made their announcement, and we ask everybody and all the national and international participants that they respect the electoral process and the electoral results and the people of Venezuela's decision, who have decided in peace and what they want and what their future will be like for this country. And as we were saying before, we trust so much the people that they have decided, they have made in a very peaceful, and they have with 92%, with a participation of 46.1% and a projection of 48% participation, with 20,500,071 people voting. We have 8,600,000 valid votes. We can say that Nicolás Maduro Moros, with 5,823,000 votes, Henry José Falcón Fuentes, 1,850,000, Bertucci Carrero, 942,000 votes, Reinaldo José Quijada, 36,000 votes. From this moment on, we authorize all the regional boards and all those places and all those charges and all with a irreversible tendency can be given over. In an hour, more or less, we'll have the results, and can be consulted. They will be consulted in the web page of the Council, the Electoral Council. Thanks, everybody else. These were the words from the president that who has made public all the results, irreversible results, with a 46.1% of participation and a transmission from 990 of all the data in the electoral process. We are talking about approximately 8,500,000 500,000 Venezuelans who have up 20 million people have already voted for today and given the victory and re-election for Maduro, Nicolás Maduro, with more than 5 million votes, and that has granted him the victory in these elections on today, May 20th.
Muy breve la intervención de la presidenta del Consejo Nacional Electoral, Tibisay Lucena, pero sí con resultados.
So we are seeing the final results of the elections in Venezuela. We have Nicolás Maduro, the current president, with 5.5 million, as we saw one report. Henry Falcón, with 1.8 million votes. The rest for Bertucci with 942,000, and Quijada the rest. We just saw Tibisay Lucena announce these results. What are your comments, the first reactions to this?
Well, I think that's a very impressive result for Maduro. I mean, first of all, of course, the abstention was higher than expected, at least according to some of the preliminary polls, because even that analysis had, which is mostly opposition-affiliated poll, had predicted something around between 50 and 60% abstention participation. And turns out the actual turnout rate was 46%, so it's slightly lower turnout than expected. But Maduro's percentage is really through the roof in that sense. They haven't calculated it yet, but it looks like it's well over 60%. So that's definitely a very impressive showing for Maduro. And of course, we have to take into account that already Henry Falcón has denounced the results and is saying that he won't recognize them.
Yes, we saw throughout the day the participation of Venezuelans voting, and we see a report of 46% of the voter turnout. It was a peaceful vote. There were no instances. Of course, Falcón did announce that there were some irregularities throughout the vote. But as we saw, that was the final results from the CNE, coming from the offices in Caracas, saying that Nicolás Maduro has won 5.5 million percent the final votes in this election, and Falcón on the second place. He's denouncing that this election has not been fair, and well, he denounced it before, and then he ran, and now he's denouncing it again. Is it a sore loser? How is that?
Well, there you have it, folks. It looks like we have with a very clear now. A very clear look at the results. It is now Nicolás Maduro has been reelected for another 6-year term, and I'm glad to be live on this historic night, and that I was able to, literally, you heard it as the results were announced. That was from the Electoral Commission in Venezuela. The Nicolás Maduro has won. I think this is I'm pretty, actually giddy about it, to be honest, because I remember 2 years ago I thought this moment would not happen, that he'd be reelected, and this is a great night for the Venezuela. I think that was now that a stable government in charge. The fact is that without Maduro, the fact is that now that he doesn't have to think about election for the next 6 years, is that he can govern, continue to work on social projects, and this big threat, though, is the United States imperialist policy. But he's there till 2024, folks. I mean, he's going to be there as now Putin and Maduro has been reelected in the same year. You know that the United States empire is probably freaking out a little bit, to be honest. Maduro won with 5.5 million votes. I mean, it was next candidate didn't even have a third of what he had. And let's see, currently I'm trying to look at what was the total results, though, like what were the percentages for everybody. But Nicolás Maduro will stay the president. There's breaking news coming right here at Voice of Bun Radio. You heard it very early, as we heard it from the Telesur broadcast that was coming. You were able to hear the live results of the election, and Maduro has officially won the election in Venezuela. I thank everyone who did tune in tonight that was able to join on this historic night here. When I was thinking is that how I hadn't done a podcast, and I was like, there's no way that I'll not air tonight on the night of election, whether which way it happens. I was going to be here doing the podcast, and I'm glad that we were able to see, we were here for this, major event in Venezuelan history. That this is this is big. This is definitely a big deal. And next is now Colombia, and hopefully Colombia goes the right way. I mean, even though I don't support everything Maduro happen, Maduro does. I think Maduro is kind of incompetent. I think Maduro has problems, but I do believe that he is was the better option than, or I should say, that's between the candidates. I should say that the Bolivarian way is the better option for Venezuela. The Bolivarian way is the better way for Venezuela, plain and simple. And compared to the opposition, and breaking up the country, fracturing the country, and reversing all the positives that Chavez did with the social programs, the Bolivarian missions, because of sabotage that the United States did. We're going to now take it out on the government of Venezuela, and now cause more problems. It's not the way. It need to be constructive rather than destructive. It was a total of 5,823,728 votes. The candidate for the broad front of the homeland, Nicolas Maduro, has been reelected to the office of the President of the Republic. This is, again, breaking news. We were live. I was watching the result with you guys as I took a little break there. And, while we watched the Venezuela election results being announced by the Electoral Committee, Henry Falcón, he had not even a third of Maduro's votes. And I don't know where even Javier Bartusi was. So we'll see how long it's, until next election is. It's scheduled for 2024. We'll see where it is at that point. And, the last election was in 2013 because of an early election because of Chavez's death. And now Maduro is here for the long term. It looks like Maduro will be here for at least another 6 years in the presidency of Venezuela. This is, again, like I said, a very, very big night for the Venezuelan people. It's a big night for democracy in Latin America, and to all the haters, to all the people that are, to the right wing hacks that will say, cry foul this election or whatnot. Just remembers that Jimmy Carter has no stake in this election whatsoever. Said this is the most fairest election that he's ever seen. Now, this wasn't this specific election, but we're talking about a prior Venezuelan election. There's all kinds of bonders for the Venezuela election. This election is much more fair than most first world countries' elections. And here in America, look who we're talking. This is a country where the most richest of the country decide our president. And, we have ultimately the New World Orders who decides the American president, whether it's Trump, whether it's Clinton, 2016 as we saw. And now that we have, ultimately, it's kind of crazy to think, that, back when 2013, that was back last time was when still the Obama administration. Now we're in the middle of the Trump administration where it just feels like everything's possible now. And we can, the U.S. imperialist machine, anything's possible. We can go to the moon now with Donald Trump, when it comes to the stuff that he thinks he's going to accomplish with the overseas, which not going to happen, And now this idea of war with Iran that will, be able to take out Iran easily, not going to happen. Go to war for Israel. This is Trump's idea, and I don't want any part of that. I don't want this country, this country's direction that we want. I don't want any part of it. It's like it's getting worse and worse. It seems like by the day. And I'm just checking out, check out a little bit more on the news. Is that the Colombia's election's coming up here. Gustavo Petro is running next week, so that's happening next Sunday. But it's only the first round, so it's not like it really saying anything what's going to happen next week. But I mean, Petro's bringing out crowds. He brought 60,000 at his Bogota rally. I mean, he had like a concert type rally. I mean, it was like or was this what he said he's going to do? I know that he had a rally that was like a concert. I mean, they say literally the top article for Gustavo Petro, Colombia reports, who does Gustavo Petro think he is? Metallica? I mean, that's because apparently he's bringing out crowds like Metallica would bring when they come to Colombia. And Gustavo Petro said that Colombia is still struggling with voter fraud. This is from one day ago on Telesur English. I'll read a little bit of this article. It says, Colombia's electoral system has been riddled with fraud since President Juan Manuel Santos came to office, warns Petro. The Colombia Humana representative closed his campaign speech by calling attention to how the president denied the European Union Electoral Technical Commission access to voter registry software. Petro called on supporters to prevent any foul play when the nation heads to the polls May 27th. We are going to defeat the fraud of Santos and the National Civil Registry in favor of Vargas by registering 100,000 electoral witnesses in Petro.com. I guess they're pretty much taking electoral monitoring into their own hands. National Electoral Council has, however, agreed to allow observers from the International Foundation for Electoral Systems to monitor the elections. The decision was announced after voters complained about the National Civil Registry's failure to patch security flaws, which led to the elimination of hundreds of thousands of votes in the 2014 congressional elections. This year, during the March 11 legislative elections, there were several reports of several reports of inconsistencies, including people casting a vote using photocopies because the registry had failed to print enough official ballots. I apologize for that. I kind of started tripping on that word for some reason. There are also allegations of vote buying outside polling stations. According to a new poll released on Friday by Texco, right-wing candidate Ivan Duque has 36.4% of the intended vote. Petro has 31.8%, and Sergio Fajardo is trailing with 16%. Think about something. Actually, I think it was 4 weeks since I did my last show. So that's probably why it's just like the longest gap I've done ever between shows, and it's kind of crazy to think about that. And let's see. So yeah, that's pretty much what they're talking about there. I mean, Petro's right behind though, and I feel like Petro's going to get a lot of votes once Fajardo is out of the election. A lot of his votes are going to go to Petro. They're not going to go to Duque because they know better than to vote for somebody that's going to cause the problems that Duque is going to cause for Colombia. This is a major moment for Colombian history. What's going to happen next Sunday to determine whether Colombia turns into a military dictatorship or becomes a functional democracy. And Colombia has dealt with, the extreme right in the past. I mean, the paramilitaries, Pablo Escobar, and yes, Pablo Escobar was working hand in hand with the CIA. There's actually a few Nazis, I think, that lived in Colombia after the war. I mean, this is not the first they've had to deal with the far right, but Ivan Duque, this is a moment of reckoning. And Colombia needs to stop Ivan Duque from winning. And because if he wins, they're going to be a complete proxy of the United States, and it's going to be a dictatorship for Colombia. And just look, I feel like he's a new, he's a menace in the waiting. And this is right now. Also, I'm just going to go right here. This is live. I guess Maduro's victory speech. I'm going to play a little bit of that right now.
De Maduro como presidente de Venezuela.
Yeah, so we're having a problem with the feed there. It's really coming in weird, which I don't think my internet looks to be fine. I think it's coming from it was the feed itself that was bad. Let me try to go to another place to try to get the coverage there. Here we go.
Because the people in Venezuela you need to respect.
And yeah,
they said that they made you vote. They forced you to vote. They said that people were forced to vote. And that is a lack of respect for more than 9 million voters that went to the electoral places and they voted freely, out of their own wills, out of their own will, sovereign way, and in secret. And it's a lack of respect here, people, to you. Indeed, this is so. I ask respect for all the people in Venezuela. Because I am the president for those who voted for me. For those who voted for the candidates of the opposition, and for those who hadn't voted. And today and tonight, on Sunday, May 20th, I call for a great journey for a national rejoining of all the political, economical, social, cultural sectors of Venezuela. A reconciliation, a place of reconciliation, a place of getting together, a permanent dialogue, which is what Venezuela needs, not useless fights, struggles, saying you said, I said. Venezuela needs, and I said it, that I will do it. On July 30th, I gave you my word, and I fulfilled it with the National Assembly, and we brought peace. And I am filled now with your energy and with your strength. And I swear that I will fulfill my word, my given word, and I will work entirely to the recuperation and the economical growth, to the cleanup of the economy, to the persecution of all the criminal mafia. And you will see me in all the country, in the government of the people of the streets, to activate the motors of the economy, and which is what we need to add to the equation, to include to social equality, to advancements, social advancements, political advancements, with a new model of the development model that we need to assume and we need to build with our work, our effort, with all the areas of the productive Venezuela, of all the workers, of all the businesses, all the middle class. My calling is broad. I am here, and I am very much conscious of the challenges that we face. I said it to you before. Today, I am a more experienced president. I am a more prepared, better prepared human being. You have trusted in me, and I will answer to that trust, that infinite trust, to that loving trust, to have given me 68% of the votes in these elections. Complex, very hard. Elections. It is not easy. It's hard to talk about this war we've been facing for these elections, trying to sabotage the transportation for people in many cities in the country so they cannot vote. I know who did it. I know what money they paid with, and there will be justice. There will be justice for those who try to stop the people from going to fulfill.
That's a little bit of the victory speech down there in Venezuela, between Maduro addressing addressing his supporters after winning 67% of the vote. Or what's 67% of the vote? Well, I know it was 5.8 million people voted for Nicolas Maduro. It was, again, I'm not, like I said, I'm not the I don't believe Nicolas Maduro is perfect. I just believe it's the better option for Venezuela. To me, I think that Chavez it's a emptiness that won't be filled, you know, and that Chavez was Chavez. There's no replacement for Chavez, unfortunately. I shouldn't say it's an emptiness that shouldn't be filled. It's just that you can't replace him. You can't be. There's nobody that can be Chavez. I don't think, because he's a unique person, and he's a political hero, a revolutionary, and a person that single-handedly changed the course of Venezuela. But looking at this weekend, this is the political news that we should focus on, not the stupid royal wedding, which I didn't mention up this point, but that was the big thing this weekend. Or yesterday there was the royal wedding happened, and in my opinion, it's irrelevant. I mean, it wasn't the reason why we won a war, so we don't have to care about the royals anymore. The royal family is an archaic monarchy that caused a lot of misery in Ireland and the United States. And as a person that supports the Irish struggle against the UK, I'm very I really have a strong feeling against the royal family. The royal family, to me, I don't see why we celebrate them. They are, the amount of wealth that the Queen Elizabeth has is sickening. And imagine if she just gave up part of that to the poor. How much, how many? She could literally eliminate world poverty, I think, with her wealth. She has she has over 5 million acres of land. And another thing is that the royal family is behind the colonialism that affected large parts of the world. And we're talking about, they colonized India, they colonized America, Canada. A lot of the third world was colonized by the UK, and a lot of the crimes of the UK are not talked about. The royal family is not a family to celebrate. They're not a family of liberty. They're not a family of for the workers. They are part of the elite. They're part of the New World Order. They are globalists, and in my opinion, they should be abolished from England. When the English government abolishes the monarchy, then I'll have a different view maybe of the English government. But right now, the English government to me is about the lowest of the low as it gets. And I really was a big supporter when Scotland went for independence back in 2014. I really wish they would have went ahead and did it. Even if they would have been part of the European Union, it would have been better than them, remaining a part of the United Kingdom. No, I shouldn't have said that. I really believe the EU might be a worse thing, but it's like they should have still just done it. And it's not a worse thing; it's the same thing. The EU, the UK, it's all part of the New World Order. And if they would have left, that would have been them still breaking away from the UK. Scotland's been struggling for a millennia against the United Kingdom, again, and what it would have been is that the UK, it's like Scotland is in the UK, or was in the UK and the EU. Then it would only been in one of those organizations, or they would only been in one of those organizations instead of two. Yeah, so I would think it would have been a step in the right way, though. Still, I think it would have. It's hard to say, or I believe it would have been a step in the right way. But it's the whole Scottish independence. In my opinion, the whole and how did I get even? Oh yeah, I got on the topic. Let's talk about the royal family. I really believe Wales should separate, Scotland should separate, Ireland, North Ireland, the regular, the rest of Ireland. They should all be part. They should all separate, and there should be independence for all those countries. And let's see. We're right now at we got about 10 minutes left of the show, and there we are. This is a historic night. Literally just less than a half hour ago, Nicolas Maduro won his election against Henry Falcón and Javier Bartuche, who were running against him, and he won very convincingly. Now it will be 6 more years. Next week we have Petra's election, we have Mexico's election, and these are the elections that are happening that could majorly reshape the future of Latin America, and I also think could turn the tide back towards, pink tide kind of lost so much favor as, we had the recent events with Brazil, Marcio Macri's election. We also had, Kaczynski's election, who's already been, or Pablo Kaczynski. All these, people have had their own scandals that have replaced the left-wing leaders. Fernando Lugo was on the throne, and then Horacio Cortez took over. We've had these things have taken place. We've just had also just a reshaping already of Latin America. Also recently, Raul Castro is no longer the president of Cuba. Now we have Miguel Diaz-Canel is now the president of Cuba. It's weird to say that Castro no longer leads, Cuba, and it's kind of weird that us watching things have changed. Remember the old days when it was Fidel and Chavez together back in the early 2000s, and now it's kind of like the next generation. We have Maduro and Diaz-Canel, who are actually about the same age. Nicolas Maduro's, I think, 55, and Diaz-Canel is like 58. So Diaz-Canel's slightly older. But now it's people that, when it comes to Diaz-Canel, he was born after the revolution even happened. Compared to the last two were, in the revolution. That was back in the 50s. And you think about how long ago that was. It's kind of crazy that, Raul Castro, the president, was, actually involved in that, in the revolution itself. And it's hard to say what will happen. I feel like if you're in a revolution, that you're more likely protected because you actually fought for it directly with your own life. I wonder how Miguel Diaz-Canel will handle Cuba. I think he'll handle Cuba just fine. I think he'll handle the country great. And there was the recent election in Costa Rica, which brought in a left-wing candidate. So it seems like so far things have went so good. I mean, we're 2 for 2, I think, this year in elections. Chile was we had, well, actually I think 2 for 3 because I think Chile voted this year, and that's brought in Piñera, who's like a Pinochet ally. He's one of the most one of the most disturbing cases of the right wing winning in South America. But Piñera will be the piece of shit that Piñera is. He's going to get. I don't think he's going to last too long. Chile, Chile has an interesting history with their different leaders. I mean, we all know what happened in 1973 with Pinochet, and most Chileans hate Pinochet. That's the thing, is that ultimately Pinochet is supported more by edgy people on the internet than actually his own people in Chile. Is that some people do call me general and stuff like that, but it's a very small portion. And the people of Chile were victimized by a CIA intervention that led to a dictator that is now despised for his strong support of Zionism, his strong support, his destruction of the economy, his destruction of productivity. I mean, all the stuff the myths that exist about him, thanks to people like on 4chan and everything, is pretty much false. Is that Pinochet was not at all a good person, and I don't see why these South American leaders nowadays of the right wing seem to like to emulate him. And his idea of privatizing everything does not make him a super capitalist. It made him still fascist because he was privatizing everything, and or he wasn't even privatizing everything. He was bringing everything into the to work with the government, and it was pretty much a crony capitalist system is what Chile had during the Pinochet years. Is that and he was also supported by American economists. One of the major supporters of Augusto Pinochet, was Alfredo Stroessner, and the other South American dictators. Which under Operation Condor, 1 million South Americans died. They can never return back to those days. Those were the dark days of South America, and this is what the right wing in South America wants to bring the continent back to. But it looks like that they're failing because now it's swinging back the other way, and now that the most populous country in Latin America is second most, next to Brazil. Mexico is about to go to the way of the left. Brazil, it's not guaranteed that Bolsonaro is going to win, which that's like the right-wing candidate in Venezuela, or not Venezuela, I mean in Brazil. They consider him like the Brazilian Trump, but I don't see the Brazilian Trump has traction necessarily to win. Apparently he's in the lead, though, but I don't think he's going to win. And I really hope that Bolsonaro loses, and even if it's not Lula da Silva, who's been in prison falsely and is a political prisoner in Brazil, even if it's another left-wing candidate in Brazil, hopefully that person can win. I'm going to play one little clip here, and that's going to be probably about it for the night, because it is almost, we're almost at 5 till, and I thank everyone that tuned into the show tonight. Let's see if I could, a little funny clip, actually. We're going to do it we're as a celebration of what happened tonight in Caracas. Which, hopefully,
Te metiste conmigo, pajarito. Te metiste conmigo, pajarito. No, tú no sabes mucho de historia. Tú no sabes mucho de nada, ¿sabes? Una gran ignorancia es la que tú tienes. Eres un ignorante, Mr. Danger. Eres un ignorante. Eres un burro, Mr. Danger. Eres un burro, Mr. Danger. O para decírtelo más bien, para decírtelo en mi mal inglés, en mi bad English, you are a donkey, Mr. Danger. You are a donkey. Me refiero, ustedes saben, para decirlo con todas sus letras, a Mr. George W. Bush. You are a donkey, Mr. Bush. ¿Sí? Te voy a decir algo, Mr. Danger. Tú eres un cobarde, ¿sabes? Tú eres un cobarde. ¿Por qué no te vas a Irak a comandar tus fuerzas armadas? Es muy fácil comandarla desde lejos. Si algún día se te va a ocurrir la locura de invadir Venezuela, te espero en esta sabana, Mr. Danger. Come on here, Mr. Danger. Come on here. Come on here, Mr. Danger. Cobarde, asesino, genocida. Eres un genocida. Eres un alcohólico, Mr. Danger. Es decir, eres un borracho. Eres un borracho, Mr. Danger. Eres un inmoral, Mr. Danger. Eres de lo peor, Mr. Danger. ¿Cómo se dice de lo peor en inglés? The last. You are the last. Lo peor que ha habido en este planeta, de lo peorcito que ha habido, se llama George W. Bush. Dios libre al mundo de esta amenaza, porque es un asesino, un enfermizo, un hombre enfermo psicológicamente. Lo sé. Personalmente es un cobarde, pero tiene mucho poder. Tiene mucho poder. Y vean ustedes lo que está pasando en Irak. Ayer el mundo marchó contra la guerra. El 70%, según encuestas que he visto, de tu propio pueblo, Mr. Danger, está contra ti. Contra la guerra. Eres un mentiroso, Mr. Danger. Estás matando niños, Mr. Danger, que no tienen la culpa de tus enfermedades, de tus complejos, chico. Tus soldados allá en Irak están bombardeando ciudades. Ayer nada más veíamos.
And that's pretty much it. That was the You Are a Donkey, Mr. Danger. You can look that up on YouTube. I want to thank everyone for watching the show and being here. This guy was badass. Hugo Chavez, former president of Venezuela. I don't care what you say. To me, he's a hero of mine, and he's a hero to a lot of people in Latin America and in North America. I'm glad that I was able to, live at the same time that he was around. And, remember when this stuff happened, all these, crazy moments, these speeches, the way of just, saying how it was, and not being afraid. Like unfortunately, a lot of the left here in America nowadays, they're afraid to call things how they are. to everybody. We'll be back next time.
No return and nobody can stop it. Malcolm Little when he knelt before Elijah Muhammad, the comet that killed the dinosaurs, changing the earth. They love to criticize, they always say I changed for the worse. Like prescription pills when you misusing them, nigga. The Templar Knights when they took Jerusalem, nigga, and figured out what was buried under Solomon's temple, Al-Aqsa. The name is not coincidental. I know too much, the government is trying to murder me. No coming back like cutting your wrists open vertically. How could the serpent be purposely put in charge of the country? Genetic engineered sickness spread amongst me. My people are so hungry that they attack without reason, like a fucking dog ripping off the hand that feeds him. Immortal technique is treason to the Patriot Act. So come and get me, motherfucker, cause I'm not coming back. This is the point from which I can never return.